Have Andy Fairbanks, the CEO of UK Protection, has joined us today at the BSIA head office in Worcester. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Staff, head of SaferCash and SaferGems, the two intelligence initiatives that the BSIA run. And Andy's come today. You are an affiliated sponsor of SaferGems, so thank you so much for all that support. But it's really our opportunity to have a chat with you about UK Protection, a little bit about your background, what you're currently doing with the industry, and the future, really. So it would be lovely if you could just tell me a little bit about how you got into creating UK Protection and your background for us, Andy, please.
Well, I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
It's a long and twisted path, as things are with everybody, really. But like yourself, I'm a former police officer. So I was a police officer for many years, worked all across the south of England, various different forces and various different attachments of units and bits and pieces. And then after sort of the policing career, sort of didn't know what to do, really. And so I thought, well, maybe the security industry is something I wanted to go into. So like some police officers, I went into the close protection industry, and I was one of the first on the initial close protection courses that came out many years ago when the SIA licensed that part of the industry. And it was very interesting. I thought, well, this is good. From there, I worked all over the world. So I worked all over Africa, Middle East, South Africa.
As a close protection officer, wow, my goodness me.
Yeah, in close protection. I've worked with everybody from royalty, major celebrities, right through to sort of banks and all sorts of people, really. But the good thing about that was it gave me a good grounding, really, of lots of different types of the security industry and coming into contact with lots of different people that a lot of the time you wouldn't normally come into contact with. And I learned a lot from them. I try to always take something from those interactions. Always take something from people that know better than you, and often there is somebody that you can learn something from.
100%.
And that then inevitably led to my own business, which is UK Protection, which me and my wife put together in 2015, and we're still going now. One thing that was really key for me was to keep the scope of it quite narrow. So we decided very early we weren't going to get involved in licensed trade, as in pubs, clubs, casinos, and all this sort of stuff. We really wanted to sort of focus on one industry and not really be the jack of all trades, but the master of one. And I think we've done that. We now look after the majority of the luxury retailers, really, I would say, in the UK nationally.
Oh, nationally?
Yeah, nationally. Yeah, we cover all the way from Scotland right down to sort of Plymouth. So all major cities you'll find personnel from UK Protection operating in.
What services do you provide, sort of across
So lots of retail. So we started off in retail initially. So retail was the startup for us, going into sort of the luxury sector, because it is very different. It's not like your other types of retail security guarding. The expectations, the risk factor is wildly different in the luxury retail environment, as you might expect. So really it needed that much more input than your average sort of security guarding contract. It is very, very personnel heavy. It's very management heavy, that industry. It has to be, because a lot of it is client experience. Really, you know, I mean, you've got to be honest, 99% of security guards' time is not being robbed, right? It's being face to face with clients, and it's that first point of contact
and making them feel welcome and not frightened to go into the store.
Not being overpowering, not being overbearing, but being there that, look, if there is an emergency or something happens, then you've got the right personnel within the store to handle that risk. That are trained to deal with that risk as well. But you also have the backup of the management of our company, where the majority of us are ex-police officers.
I was going to say, so most of those, and that sits really well, doesn't it? Because you've got those people skills, communication skills, really key, but also understand risk and recognise.
Yeah, and you can't avoid the fact that at some point, if you operate in retail, especially in luxury retail, the crime will find you. There's only so much you can do to mitigate the risk, but eventually somebody is going to try and take something from your store, either forcibly or via fraud or any other forum. But also, I think what we bring to the table for our clients is the after support of that, how we will deal with the police for them, because we understand how the police work. We understand what the expectations are, the needs, concerns, and everything else that goes along with an investigation. I think that, we're ideally placed to offer support that maybe some other companies couldn't do.
Right, okay, now I understand that. Yeah. And so the mission for UK Protection sort of going forward, what do you see the current sort of issues for you, I suppose, is the...
I think I think there's some sort of misunderstanding maybe going on about private security in the UK.
Okay.
I think not all private security is the same. Do we take absolutely everybody that we interview? No. Why? Because some people simply can't operate in the world we operate in, and that's no fault of their own. They either don't have the background, the experience, the training, or the aptitude to come up to our level of operations. And I say this to all of our people: we're not going to lower our standards for you. You need to up your standards for us.
Yes.
Otherwise, we can't work together. And that's what this is. It's working together. It's a partnership. And I say to most of our security officers, I'm no better than you, and you're no better than me. We just do different jobs in the same organisation. That's all. But if I had to come and stand with you in the store, I would.
Yes. And have you so UK Protection started 2015, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So in those 21 years, what the changes have you seen from when you first started it to now?
There's not a great deal of change.
Okay.
Look, security is security, right? And one thing I don't like to do is overcomplicate a cheese sandwich. Let's be honest.
Keep it simple.
You keep it as simple. If you start trying to overcomplicate the core purpose of what you're there for, you'll start to introduce risk that doesn't need to be there.
Okay.
If you get the basics right to a good standard and a high level, then the rest of it you can add to. They're like bolt-ons, But I think, I don't know. I think industries change when tragedies happen, right?
Yes.
And then reports come out from central government about, okay, well, lessons will be learned. Yeah, well, sometimes lessons are not being learned at the minute, and I think that's where we all need to focus from a security industry: is how do we better integrate ourselves into the wider security context with local police forces, because I still think there's a disconnect between the police and private security.
Yes.
Don't know why, it just doesn't seem to be, for whatever reason. But I think the biggest challenge and stuff like that in the security industry really is standards, I think, are a big thing.
Right.
And the understanding of security is changing. I mean, you just have to look at the retail environment now, right? About every week, all we ever see is headlines of endless disorder in shopping centres.
Yes, which is terrible.
It is terrible. It is. The shoplifting's out of control.
Yes.
I mean, obviously we've seen that major retailers, certainly the supermarkets, have started to come out and say, well, it's an epidemic, it's out of control. Well, yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. How do you get it back under control then?
Yes.
That's the big question.
Yeah, when UK policing is stretched in so many different areas, there is not enough police officers on the ground to be able to deal, and every single investigation that the police have is so complex: CCTV, AMPR, witness statements, that there isn't enough people to be able to do a really thorough investigation, I'm sad to say.
No, there's not. And I think the communication from the police to retailers and to private security maybe not where it should be. A lot of people, you'll know because, and we know because we're former police officers, how much actually takes to do a basic investigation for a shoplifter.
Yes, so much.
That could tie up 2 police officers for 12 hours, one shoplifter for 30 quid theft or whatever. It's very, very intensive on manpower trying to deal with retail crime. And I'm not saying that police forces then try and shirk their responsibilities. Look, crime's crime, and there's varying levels. But the reality is prioritisation, right, in the police.
Yes.
And therefore, sometimes retailers might not get the prioritisation they feel they deserve. Well, that's where the private security fills that gap. Yeah. And if you're investing properly in your man guarding, then hopefully you're not going to suffer from these problems in the first place. But if you haven't got an appropriate budget in place to mitigate risk as a retailer, then realistically the question comes back to yourselves.
Yes, and we've spoken a lot in the past about the importance of sharing information, and I think that's a key message to all companies and the retail industry. It's about, even if it's the smallest piece of information or you have some amazing CCTV, it's about making partners aware and making the police aware, so that it's pieces of the jigsaw, really.
Yeah, 100%. If people don't know about it, you can't act on it, right?
No, absolutely. And if you're keeping it to yourself, then that's, your neighbour may be suffering from that crime.
And they will, and as we know, crime moves, right? All you do is disrupt crime in the police. You're never going to solve crime, and you need to learn that early. And in retail, and certainly in security, the same. Look, you're a disruptor. That's what you are in security. You disrupt it. You push it somewhere else. It doesn't really go go away. It's like grass, right? It will keep growing eventually. You'll get rid of one layer of it, and another layer will come in behind. Yeah, so
it's a good discussion.
All you're doing is really pushing crime left, right, and centre, but you're never going to solve it completely. But what you can do is take appropriate steps from retailers' perspective to mitigate the risk for yourselves. You know, you cannot rely on the police to do everything for you. No. You know, the police are no longer really, and they haven't been for a long time, a proactive service. No. It's a reactive service now. Okay, yes. So if the wheels have completely fell off and all else has failed, you call the police. Yes. But realistically, there's lots of things you could do as a responsible retailer in the middle that could probably solve some of your issues yourselves. Yes.
Can you give us any examples, or is it bespoke to each client?
It's bespoke to each client because everyone has different things. You know, if you look at the take the food retailers. Let's take Tesco's and we'll name a couple. But you know, none of them are unique. They all suffer from the same problem. They suffer from the same type of criminality. Okay. But what doesn't help is here's a great story for you. Right. I go into Tesco's the other day and I spot the security officer collecting trolleys and collecting baskets, and I'm like, hang on a minute, how has this become part of that individual's core role during the day? What message is that really sending out? To somebody that's coming in that, let's be honest, is shoplifting for a living.
Yes.
Okay? They're not shoplifting because they're hungry. Yeah. They're going in, they're stealing items to sell the same day as an income.
Yes.
Well, what it's doing is saying, well, no one's going to stop me. No one's looking at me. There's absolutely no risk to me here whatsoever. So what does it do? It encourages more people to come in.
Yes.
When should security officers really be using the Hoover and
they're filling their day, but actually they're doing the wrong things. Their key role is
they're being utilised as another member of staff.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's not their core role. No. If you're not going to let security do its job, then why have it in the first place?
No, absolutely. So, from a technology perspective, have you seen a change in the last sort of 10 years of because from many of your clients, their CCTV is very good, their security systems has that made it support you more? Is it better?
Yeah, it does, but you've got to be honest about technology. It's great post-event.
Yes.
Because you can all sit there and review it as many times as you want and see how it happened and who was there and what method was used. But I've never seen a security camera jump off a wall and detain somebody.
Right, no, absolutely.
So it's layers, right? It's layers. You have all these layers, and that's great. The reason why people go really heavy on CCTV and stuff like that, it's a one-off fixed cost, okay? So you can justify that in a budget. Man garden is expensive. It is expensive. I'm commercially aware, and I completely understand that the budgets have to be met. And that's a fair comment from retailers, okay? They have to be able to operate. I get it. But there's also certain things, like I say, that are non-negotiables. Yeah. They just are, and if you dangle that carrot long enough, it's certainly in the luxury retail environment, someone's going to bite it.
Yes.
Yeah. If you've got that item, eventually someone's going to want it.
And from a UK protection perspective, you do some training. So you do RAID training. Is that? Can you tell me a little bit about what RAID training is?
So RAID training, I developed RAID training back sort of 2014, I suppose. 2013, 2014, It really got going. And it was instigated, to be fair, by a major retailer that said, look, we're opening all these major showrooms. They're going to have really high value items. We're really worried about the staff, which was great to hear because they're putting staff first, which is a core component to this. And we need to have an input about how to deal with a stressful situation. If we do have an armed robbery, what are we expected to do? So again, needs, concerns, expectations. That's evolved, and this year that will be rolled out nationally to all retailers. So originally it was just for our own clients. However, from speaking with the insurers as well, because we work quite closely with other insurance companies now, they were quite keen on that to try and mitigate risk. And it's also post-recovery because it is very stressful. Me being involved in armed robbery, I'd walk out of there completely unfazed by it, really. But that's only because of the training and the input I've had over the years and the sheer amount of stuff I've done. But I can't expect somebody that's come working from a fashion retailer into a high-end watch boutique, they then suffer a robbery and they've been given no input whatsoever and no post-care either. So RAID training is all about that. It's very much about learning, seeing, doing, experiencing, talking, So yeah, this year, that goes out nationally.
Fantastic, that's great. And will there be online training as well, or is it face-to-face?
There will be. So the face-to-face really is the one that we're really trying to get out there, because the input is invaluable, really. It's really giving them the skills to how to deal with these situations, and keep themselves safe and keep clients safe, which is primarily the reason why we do this. But there is also going to be an online element.
Right.
So there will be an online refresher and an online element as an awareness training session, where people can log on, they can go through the training program, go through the syllabus, and come away at the end of it with a reasonable working knowledge of what the expectation is.
Yes. And I'm very keen for the face-to-face. I think since the pandemic we've moved away from that, and people, although Teams calls are very good, people don't have the opportunity to interact, to share their concerns or ask questions. People are more reserved, I think, when it's an online sort of seminar. So great to see that it's going to be that face-to-face, and people can learn more, and building people's confidence, isn't it? And it's...
Yeah, and I'm a great believer in this is not a tick box exercise, right?
No.
This is real learning. This is safety critical learning. This is not we're doing this just because we've got to tick a box and show that we've done something. Well, we can all do that, but this actually has to have an input. And one thing I say to all of my operations managers and all of my senior leadership team is the decision we're making in the best interest of the client, or is it in our best interest? Because realistically, our focus should be on we're doing this for a specific reason for our client, not what's best for us.
Yes.
It's, don't get me wrong, look, we're a business. We have to make money. We have to invest in technology. We need to have the best personnel, and they're not cheap, okay? But the reality is our core element is reducing risk and being risk managers for our clients.
Yes, yeah. So thinking about clients, and it's about retaining their trust and your effectiveness. How do you go about that on a sort of day-to-day basis, building trust with your clients and members?
Close working relationships and communication.
Right.
That's what I've learned over time. And bearing in mind, we're dealing with billions and billions of stock.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we're entrusted to look after some of the most expensive jewellery in the world and in history on some occasions. It's a very privileged position to be in. It's a very serious position to be in and shouldn't be taken lightly. But with clients, I think it's about having the trust from them and them understanding that we have their best interests at heart deep down. There's always going to be that occasional conversation of, well, the budget doesn't stretch to this, doesn't stretch to that, and I will push back and say, well, it needs to. Here's why, and here's the reasons behind that. Sometimes we come to a bit in the middle. Sometimes I win, sometimes they win, but it's still a collaborative effort.
Yes,
it's got to be.
So you sound like you have a very, very busy day.
Oh, yeah.
How do you manage the strategic side with the balancing the day-to-day activity? Because you've got staff on the ground, and if an incident happens, staff are injured, or how do you balance that with the sort of day-to-day work?
I've always been a big fan of managing directors and CEOs and business owners should still have a great grip on the operational side of their business. Yep. It's very easy for me to go and sit in an office somewhere and just work with sales teams, marketing teams, PR teams, or other organisations. Well, that is part of my role. I mean, and that is part of what I do in this organisation. However, I am intrinsically integrated into our operations side of the business as well. I know what's going on all the time, and I want to know what's going on all the time. I don't need the absolute intimate details of it, but I need to have a working knowledge of what's going on, because if I don't, that's when sometimes you can find that actually someone's taking a risk that might be a bit too high for my liking. And realistically, I'm managing the risk from our organisation as well. So, I'm a big fan of getting out on the ground, going and seeing people, staying in touch with everybody that works with us.
So just give me a quick idea of a typical day for you. Obviously, you've come to see us in Worcester today, so thank you so much, because you're based down in Exeter.
Based in Exeter, we also have an office in London.
Right.
We have an operation office in London that's 24 hours a day.
Okay, right.
And that's really where the operations run from, not from Exeter. Exeter, it's our home city. That's where we originated, and that is where our admin and back office sort of operations work from. But our operational side is very much London based.
So if clients wanted to come and see you, it's London based, is it? Sort of, so we could come and see you and talk to. Oh, right, yes, you love to travel. You've come up this morning, I don't
mind travelling around.
That's
and, really do a few miles.
And can you, from your wealth of experience, so being a police officer, then close protection and running a company, advice to anybody who was looking to either come into this business, or a young person that's wanting to get into guarding? Can you give any advice from what you've learnt along the way that's given you those skills?
Look, it can be a really fulfilling career. and you'll get out of it what you put in. I know it sounds a bit cheesy and it sounds a bit of an adage, but it is true. If you really engage in this industry, you can go on, to some really high levels. It's not easy in the close protection industry. It's quite a cynical industry, and everyone says, "Oh well, unless you're ex-military or you're ex-police officer or you're ex-firearms, ARV, TFU, whatever, then you won't get on anywhere." Well, that's not true either. Because some of the best close protection officers I've met didn't have those backgrounds. Would I go and put them in a hostile environment in the middle of the Middle East in a war? Probably not. No, I wouldn't. Why? Because some training you can't get unless you've been in the police, unless you've been in the military. You can't replicate that training. No one does it privately. You just can't do it. However, domestically, there is certainly a place for them. There certainly is. And don't get disheartened. Everyone's a cynic, aren't they? And the police is like this, and the security industry like it. Everyone's a cynic, and it's all, you'll never do this, you'll never do that. You can if you really want it. If you want it bad enough, you'll do it.
Lovely. Okay, well, I'm just thinking of the future. It's difficult because, as you say, the industry hasn't really changed. It's still physical crime. We are seeing, since the pandemic, the borders are opened up again, so we're getting foreign national offenders into the UK. They are very organised in them, how they, in particular South Americans who are doing the follow-off crimes from jewellers and their distraction crimes. So it's about ensuring that we gather that information and we share it. But it hasn't really changed after all. I retired sort of 8 years ago, but it hasn't really changed. That type of crime is still very...
No, and there's always types of new crime, and we were talking about it this morning, actually, weren't we? Where technology is the inroad to the modern crime, whether it be Apple wallets, whether it be gift cards, but these are fraud offences, so they're not robbery offences, they're fraud offences. Very different things, different MOs, different scope. So, but it's still crime, right? And it still plays into that wider circle. So, I think future-wise, where's it going? I think AI is going to be a big thing. I think AI is the perfect forum for offending. Right. I think as great it is for us, and I use AI a lot. I like AI. I think it is going to play a huge part of our industry going forward, especially from data sharing, and crime linking. I think that's where it will really come in with us, is linking crime statistics and predictions. Predictions, sorry. So predicting crime, I think AI is going to be quite good at. And spotting patterns. I think that's really where we're
sometimes it's missed by the human eye because of attention spans or ability.
And AI can do huge amounts of complex calculations very quickly, way quicker than a human could ever do, right? So if especially for SaferGems, for example, where you've got huge amounts of intelligence, huge amounts of data, if you could feed that in, eventually it's going to predict a model. It's going to come up with a model that's going to say, well, actually, this group are responsible for 42% of the crime. The chances are they're going to appear in Worcester, they're going to appear in London, they're going to appear here. So I think AI is a big thing, and I think that's probably where it's going. Will you ever get rid of man guarding? Nope. No, you can't. No. Like I said before, a computer's not going to do the job of a human when it comes to physically guarding something. It will tell you something's happened, and it will tell you what it suggests you do about it, but someone's got to do something about it.
You've got to have your feet on the ground, haven't you, to be able to respond.
You always need boots on the ground.
Lovely. Okay. Well, Andy, thank you so much for your time. It's been really insightful, very interesting, and thank you for all your support to SaferGems. We're very grateful for that, as I know the National Association of Jewellers and TH Marsh, who are our founding sponsors. So thank you very much for your time today, and look forward to catching up again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.